2025 to order. Please join me in the... Thank you for that. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. It's nice to see some faces at our meeting tonight. Thank you for coming and enduring the fog to get here. So we have on the agenda tonight the proposed water and wastewater rates. We are going to start with a presentation on the wastewater and then a presentation from our rate consultant on the water. And then we are going to get into the public hearing portion of it. The reason we're doing the presentation of both first and not holding wastewater in the public hearing is because our consultants have some time constraints. So there are going to be a couple rules for this meeting. I would like everyone to come up and speak at the microphone so that, because this is a recorded meeting, no talking without being recognized first, no applause, cheering, or booing. We'll give 3 minutes per public speaker and no time sharing. We will be using a visual or audible timer. Where is the timer? Got it. Please avoid repetition in the comments. If you've got something that somebody else has already said, please, comment that you have the same comments. That keeps the meeting going a little bit faster, so we're not here until midnight tonight. During the presentation and when the board is doing its deliberations, we're going to withhold comments from the public at that time. So the appropriate time to make your comments will be when I open the public hearing. So with that, I'm going to pass the presentation, starting off with our general manager, Larry McKinney.
Hi, good evening. I'm Larry McKinney. I'm the general manager of the agency, and I want to give about a 5-minute introduction to what we're doing. I think most of you know all this, but I just want to set the stage a little bit. The Amador Water Agency, as you know, provides water service, wholesale and retail, treated and untreated, to more than half of the county population, just a little under 25,000 people. We also provide wastewater service to a much smaller group of customers in 12 different wastewater systems that are spread all across the county. As a public agency, we are required by law to serve and to be prepared to serve customers in our service area, which is by law the entire county, if they ask for service and if they comply with our rules and regulations. To be able to do that, we are required to establish rates and charges that recover costs fairly and equitably from all of our customers. The state constitution and the state statutes define how this rate setting is to be done, including requiring that we conduct a rate study, that we deliberate in public meetings, that we conduct a public hearing, and that we provide an opportunity for customers to protest new proposed rates. And this meeting tonight is a part of that process, obviously. At its September 25th regular meeting, the Board of Directors authorized these public hearings to consider adjustments to the agency's wastewater and water rates, and the agency, which the agency is proposing to increase over the course of the next 5 years. On October 9th, the agency mailed a notice of the proposed rates and of tonight's public hearings to all customers and owners of served property. The agency is a not-for-profit entity and may only set rates based on its financial needs. We have needs to plan, build, operate, and maintain our water and wastewater systems and to administer the delivery of water service in compliance with many laws and regulations. We have a staff of 50 which includes 3 managers, 13 administrative staff, 3 engineering staff, and 31 operations employees. Considering our served population, and especially considering the geographic extent of our service area, this is a modest and I would say hardworking staff. We all know that inflation is a significant concern, particularly right now. We're all experiencing rising costs in many areas. AWA has seen its costs for fuel, electricity, and treatment chemicals double in recent years. These same costs affect all of you, along with housing and rent and rising food costs. Those affect all of us, including our employees, which also means they affect how much we have to invest in our skilled staff. For at least the last 5 years, though, the major driver of the agency's rates has been the challenge of old and failing infrastructure. I don't know if you saw, but I put a couple of examples of things over on the table on the way in. We've been doing some repair and replacement of leaking pipes recently, and you can see some of the stuff that we're pulling out of the ground, pipes that are clogged with years and years of corrosion and deposit inside them, pipes that have been patched multiple times within just a few feet because of leaks. So those just sort of exemplify the problems that we have with a lot of our infrastructure. In 2021, the agency completed a water master plan study looking at all of our water systems, and in 2022, we completed a wastewater master plan study. These studies looked at the size and condition of existing facilities compared to our current demands and projected growth. This evaluation resulted in a list of projects that are needed now to meet the need for reliable service to existing customers. The list included 80 water projects with a cost estimate of $283 million. And the wastewater study produced a list of dozens of needed projects with a need to increase investment up to about $113 million. Clearly, these needs are beyond our financial capacity to just go out and do. So the agency went through a difficult exercise of prioritizing the capital needs and started work on an initial 5-year program. That included 28 water projects with a cost in 2021 of $33 million and 10 wastewater projects costing $3.5 million. And during the last 4 years, we've completed 19 water and wastewater capital projects. We have 20 more of those projects underway. So in other words, we raised the rates before and said that it was mainly driven by the need for capital projects, and that's what we've been doing with the money. Of the 20 capital projects that are currently underway, 6 are water projects that are of such urgency and high cost that we need to finance them with debt. And again, this is what we said in 2021 when we raised the rates the last time, that we needed to become financially stronger so that we could become creditworthy to borrow money to spread the cost out of these urgent projects. And in fact, we've improved our bond rating by 3 levels and are now A-rated. We said that we needed to borrow money for some of our project costs, and a year ago, in fall of 2024, we issued bonds to get started on that. The rates that are being proposed now this evening are necessary to carry that effort forward. In 2021, when we did much more significant rate increases, we told the public that we expected that future rate increases would be more like inflation, not as dramatic as what we did in 2021. This year, however, we completed an update of our water master plan study. We looked at all of our projects again and we reevaluated costs. And we found that construction costs have increased much more rapidly than CPI costs. So in order to be able to pursue the debt financing that we need for our most urgent projects, we need to borrow more money than we planned in 2021. The proposed rates tonight are designed to meet that need. But this is not a Cadillac approach. The AWA board struggled through numerous meetings to find a way to achieve the most urgent improvements to infrastructure while balancing the need for affordability. The proposed rates are intended to meet our operating needs and to fund the most urgent and important capital needs. But the board has determined that many water and almost all wastewater capital needs will have to wait until the agency can secure grants, more grants, or find other non-rate revenue. In other words, the rates that are being proposed this evening are a difficult compromise that the board is trying to make. To get us through all of this work, AWA engaged Sanjay Gower and Nancy Fan, who are online tonight, of Water Resources Economics. Sanjay, I'm sorry, we got you on the agenda as Raftalis. That's his past role, but his company is now Water Resources Economics, to conduct our rate study. The study involves the development and use of a mathematical model of the agency's finances over the next 5 years. Sanjay is going to explain how a rate study is done, and he's going to explain the rates that are being proposed for water and wastewater this evening. Madam President.
Go ahead and start your presentation, please, Mr. Gar.
Okay, and you, good evening, Madam President, board members, staff, and public. First, can you hear me well?
We can hear you just fine, and I understand you're in a completely different time zone, so.
Yeah, it's a little, I'm other side of the planet right now, so I appreciate your accommodating me here. I'm going to share my screen, make sure I have that going. And you can see the screen.
Yes, now we can.
Okay, perfect. All right, perfect. So good evening, President, Madam President, board, staff, and public. It's my pleasure to be here to talk about this important subject about the water and wastewater rates. As the general manager, Larry mentioned, I will be talking a bit about the rate study process, how we do a rate study, talk about the key milestones of the study, how we've been engaging on the study for quite a bit. And then we're going into the financial plan. The financial plan is really about how we collect the revenues needed to maintain this service. Water and wastewater services are rate generated, so the customers, your bills pay for this critical asset, this critical service that we need in our community, which is water and wastewater service. And there's a lot of costs associated with that, as Larry mentioned, the capital needs, and so the financial plan takes that into account. Then we'll show you the proposed rates, impacts to customers. We want to be very transparent about what we're doing. We also will talk about the report. We did develop a detailed report that shows the math and logic behind the rate study. That was submitted to the board, the public hearing notice, and the schedule, next steps. So we've been at this. We started this study February 4th of 2025, this beginning of this year. We've had series of board meetings where we really grappled this challenge that we're facing today at this moment. On April 10th, we talked about policies, we talked about the rate structure, we talked about do we want to change anything. We sort of, looked at all the different options out there on the table and really took the time to think about it. We came up with the approach that makes sense for our communities and the values of our community. And then we started developing the financial plan. Financial plan, as Larry mentioned, we went at this many times, went actually twice. A lot of times when we meet with agencies, we only do it one time. So we did do a due diligence of really asking ourselves, what's the minimum amount of capital needs that we need to make sure we can keep this critical asset in place while maintaining affordability as much as possible. And that's the balancing act here we're talking about. It's making sure the services are provided for our community while at the same time minimizing as much as we can customer impacts. Then we go into rate discussion. We had quite a bit of discussions about that, about the different impacts, how we can adjust those impacts so they're not so big on our customers. Again, throughout this whole process, the board has been very diligent about affordability, and that's why we had so many meetings with the board. And then on September 25th, the board received the report. It's available for the public to look at. The notice was mailed out on October 25th. Mailed out on October 25th. And actually, it was mailed out on October 9th. Excuse me, I have my little screen here, Zoom screen blocking it. So rate study overview, how we do a rate study, there's a couple of components with these studies, and each of these components answers different questions. So the first one is the financial plan. As I mentioned, this is really looking at how much revenue we need on an annual basis to fund the operation that's needed because of Prop 218. So we look at the business model of running this utility, look at the rates. So we're talking about the fee for service, we're not talking about tax. Tax is a general benefit, this is a specific benefit to property owners. So we really want to make sure we have that logic and rationality. And then that logic and rationality is then documented in the report. The report is very detailed and tedious, there's a lot of information there, but it does show all that. And then once the report has been submitted, or received, I should say, by the board, now that then we start the Prop 218 process where people can ask questions about the report. If they have any questions, we'll answer them. We didn't receive any questions about the report during the 60 days. And then we can have this hearing, which is today. So we want to go over wastewater first. So these are 4 graphs that we've developed where we show the financial plan. Over here shows the revenues. These are the O&M costs right over here. This bar line right over here is revenues without any adjustments, and this dotted line right over here is basically revenues with the 3% increase. Wastewater was a struggle. We know that wastewater rates are already high in this area, and we struggled with capital needs. As you can see over here, the capital needs are grayed out. So basically, we're not funding any capital needs. We're just doing maintenance. And the reason why is because of already the rates being so high, we didn't want to it cause more burden to our customers. So there's no debt over here. And then by doing that, we slightly build up our reserves over here. And these reserves are important, as I mentioned, because if something goes wrong on the wastewater system, some asset fails or whatever, then we have money in the bank to fix that right away. And then we can and then the reserve will dip down, and then we build them back up. So this is the financial plan associated with wastewater. And then these are the rates. So we just, we did do a cost of service analysis where we realigned the rate structures. We looked at the strength and flows of these different customers. Residential customers is a fixed rate monthly, as shown right over here. Commercial has a fixed and variable rate, as shown over here. And then there's a debt service charge for the 3 service areas that are legacies that we took into account. Next we go to water. Water was more of the challenge. This is one where we went back and forth about the capital needs. So over here is the capital CIP needs. There's debt-funded CIP that we took into account. There's some grant-funded CIP over here. And then these are the rate-funded CIP. And then you see this unfunded CIP. So what we've done is we went back and forth and asked ourselves, how much CIP can we execute? And we feel comfortable with those increases. So this was the elephant in the room, you know. We're doing 90% in 2027, but in the out years, we're only doing 75%. So there is 25% of CIP, capital improvement needs, that, you know, engineers evaluated that could be done, but because of the impacts to customers, we're going to defer that. This is a 7% increase with this plan. If we went to the full amount, then it would be much more increase. So we struggled with this. Based on this information, then we have the coverage ratio requirement. Coverage is a big component in this part of the study because of the new debt that we're being issued. We have the reserve requirements and the targets over here to make sure we maintain a good credit rating. So we have low interest rates, which is a benefit for customers. We also have our reserve targets. We are drawing down on our reserves. These reserves are a little bit, they look high over here. There's a lot of debt issuance that are coming online that gets drawn down. And then by 2031, we'll be back at our reserve target. This is normal whenever you issue quite a bit of stay the same from 2027 to 2031. Then we look at the untreated side of the house. Here's again the monthly fixed charge. It does increase by meter size. Most of the customers, residential, have a 5/8 or 3/4, so that's where most of you are. These are the commercial, larger establishments, and you have the commodity charge. And then you have the monthly debt service charge over here. So the rate study, we completed a rate study. We developed a report. The report has an executive summary, shows the results, the recommendation. It has detailed financial plan, cost of service, proposed rates. The rate study is known as the administrative record. It's important to have that for transparency. We want to communicate to customers how these rates were derived. They've been posted on the website, and we were able to answer questions on it if there is any. So the rate study is important because this is the document that shows the nexus of the logic behind the rates. So it has all the details behind it. It has a lot of nuance in there. It is detailed, and it walks everyone through the calculation and assumptions used. We're not hiding anything. We're being very transparent in our analysis, and it is a key part of the administrative record. So that concludes my presentation. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and looking forward to hearing any comments or questions the board may have.
Larry, I would like it if you took maybe a minute to describe a little bit more in detail about what the projects are, specifically the redundancy and capacity improvements in Ione, and I know I'm putting you on the spot here, and the Clearwell improvements, and what that means for why we put that at the top of the list.
Yeah, so I mentioned in my introductory comments that there's 6 projects that are water projects that we're debt financing. So we have 6 different water systems that we operate, but the largest 2 are served by the Tanner treatment plant near where our headquarters is, and the Ione treatment plant. Both of those treatment plants were previously PG&E treatment plants that we took over in 1985. We don't know exactly how old they are, but they've been around a long time. We've made a lot of improvements to them over the years, but they're running basically right up against capacity in the summer, and that's not a way to operate reliably. It's not considered from a regulatory perspective a reliable water source if anything goes down, you don't have enough water in the summertime. In the case of Ione, that situation is so serious, we're so close to the edge during the summer that we actually have passed emergency regulations to say that we're not going to allow new connections in the Ione service area except for on a case-by-case emergency exception basis, where people come in and show us how they're offsetting their use or something like that so that we can justify doing it. That's a very uncomfortable situation for us to be in, because we're supposed to be providing service, and to look at a part of the county where most of the planned growth is planned in the Ione service area, and for us to say, we're just not going to be able to serve it, that's not really acceptable. But the key part is that the level of service we're providing now, even for existing customers without growth, is not reliable because of the way we're pushed so far up against the capacity. So the 6 projects that we have on our list for debt financing, one of them is a tank up in the COP system that we call Tank D, and that tank is in terrible condition. We think that it's potentially a hazard, that it could be leaking or even collapsing, and it doesn't provide adequate fire flow, so we're going to replace that tank. The other 5 projects are all related to the Tanner and Ione treatment plants. And at the Tanner plant, we want to replace our Clearwell, which is the storage unit that we have for water that's been treated already. If you've been up to our headquarters, we have this large pond next to our headquarters office. That's raw water, and right next to it, there's a covered reservoir. It's got a floating cover over it. That's our treated water. That Clearwell dates back 80 years or however long. It leaks. We can't repair it because we can't take it down because it's the only treated water storage we have in that system. The cover that's on it is past its expected useful life. We're concerned that we can't draw the reservoir down too far because we're concerned that the cover would collapse and take the whole system out for however long it took to fix it. During the summer, the amount of water that we have stored in the Tanner clear well is about 5 hours of summer usage. So if we have an outage with that clear well, we are in deep trouble. And that system serves 4 of the 5 cities in the county, all of them but Ione. So we're going to replace that clear well with a new tank that will be the same size, and then we'll be able to operate both of them in tandems while we maybe make repairs to the existing clear well. Ultimately, we're going to build a second clear well tank, but that's another project down the road that we've been looking for grant funding for. If we're going to increase the plant capacity at Tanner, we have to do improvements inside the plant with how it actually functions and operates. Right now, everything in it is manual. An operator has to go valve to valve and make adjustments, and you can't optimize the flow that way. So without replacing the whole plant, we want to go in and improve those operating systems so that it can operate in a more optimized way. So that's one of our projects. And then our treatment plants, the Tanner and Ione plants, are both filtration plants. We filter the water and then we add chlorine to disinfect. The filters have to be backwashed periodically. And then the backwash water has to be handled somehow. It's effectively a wastewater. It's not sewage, but it's a wastewater. So if we're going to increase the capacity of the plant, we have to increase our system for disposing of wastewater, managing the backwash water. So we have a project to construct new wastewater or new backwash water drying beds near the plant that will accommodate that. So those 3 improvements are all at the Tanner plant. And then the last 2 projects are in Ione, which is our most urgent situation. We've identified the bottlenecks in the plant there. That plant is on a very constrained lot. There's not a lot of room there to make big plant improvements, but we've done a very careful study of the plant. We figured out where the bottlenecks are, that if we fix those, we can get the plant up to what its design capacity was supposed to be, which would be sufficient for us for at least a period of years. And to do that, we're going to replace the clarifier, which is a part of the treatment process. And then we're going to make other improvements in the plant just to take care of some of the issues that are involved with how the plant operates. In particular, we have some really serious concerns about safety, the way that the employees have to operate on top of the equipment, and the way that chemicals are stored. It's not the best situation. It's really 1960s. And so we want to create a safer situation for everybody there. And then again, we need to handle the increased backwash water there. So we had a plan to construct new backwash drying beds for the Ione treatment plant at the site where our Ione reservoir is, which is about a mile out of town in Ione, outside of Ione. So we were going to build new drying beds at the reservoir site and truck the backwash water a couple of times a day out to the drying bed site. It was going to be a $10 million project. Instead, we've now substituted that with an agreement that we reached with U.S. Mine to take our backwash water. They can use it for dust suppression on their site. And we're going to build a pipeline to their property and send our backwash water to them, and it's going to cost us about $4.5 million to do that instead, and then we won't have to be trucking water every day. So those are the projects that are the most urgent, that the board identified as being the most urgent projects, and we're talking about $50 to $60 million as a current estimate of those. We've borrowed 19 of that, and we're working this spring to secure the rest of it. And the rates, as Sanjay described, are designed to be able to cover the debt service for the new debt, and to meet a coverage ratio, which means you have to cover more than what your actual debt service is, to have a margin of safety for the ratings agencies to give you a credit rating so that you can get lower interest. All that has been rolled into the proposal for tonight. Does that answer your question, Madam President? Anything else?
Yes, that was perfect. Thank you for that summary. At this time, I'd like to ask if any of the board members have any questions for staff or the consultants. Okay. Hearing none, then we will get into the public hearing portion of tonight's agenda. We're going to take comments and questions regarding the agency's proposal to increase the wastewater service charges. Again, we're going to keep the comments to 3 minutes. The public hearing is being held under the applicable provisions of Proposition 218 in the California Government Code. And I will go ahead and open it. Please be orderly about addressing the microphone. So any questions or comments on the wastewater rates? Seeing, do you want to address the board on, this is wastewater?
Good evening. My name is Paul. I live in Ione. My wife and I are older people, and we have some concerns about, but we know that everything's going to cost more. And we've got, the way it's been the last couple of years, everything costs more now. But I have a couple of questions. I know they have one of the comments you made in there, the cost of fuel and whatnot. Is it normal for people to take their cars home from work? Their service vehicles?
We do have some employees that are on call because the treatment plants and distribution system obviously works 24 hours a day.
Yeah, I can understand they're on
So
call,
we do have vehicles that do go home with our on-call employees.
And then my biggest concern is, we live in Ione, like I said, and we're in an old house, but it's all copper plumbed, and I've upgraded a lot of stuff on it. Sometimes our water tastes and smells so bad you can't stand it. Why is that? I have to filter everything that we drink or use to cooking.
Do you want to take that one? I'm not going to get into the technical reasons why sometimes the water has a taste and odor.
And that's drinking water too.
Yeah.
Want to make sure no one has
Yeah.
wastewater.
Yeah. Before we, yeah,
How do you want to do that? It's not a wastewater issue. So.
I know. Does anyone else have any questions or comments on wastewater? Just hold for me for just a second. Are there any questions or comments on wastewater?
I'm going to comment. I'm in my own. I really like the idea of using the wastewater for mine.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and close. It sounds like most people want to talk about the water, the water section of this. So I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing on wastewater.
Before you close it, if I can suggest, let's move on with the water questions, and you can tell if anybody needs to fill out a protest form for wastewater, you can do that for a minute while he's finishing his question, and then we'll close the hearing.
Okay. So, Larry, then can you address the taste and odor issues, please?
To the best of my ability. Can you, online, Sanjay, can you hear me if I just talk from here? Okay, great, thanks. Nevertheless. So, our drinking water all comes from, even in Ione, comes from the McKellamny River. It's not, all the drinking water that we're delivering in Ione comes from the McKellamny River. None of it is local groundwater. It's all from the river. And it comes down, it comes down by pipe from Lake Tabood to Tanner, and then down by another pipe to the Ione Reservoir. And it's generally very high quality water, but depending on the time of year, depending on whether we've had storms, sometimes there's more organic material in the water, sometimes there's more sediment, and it needs to be filtered more. So we adjust how we're treating the water all the time. And then it goes into the Ione Reservoir. The Ione Reservoir is an open body of water, and then from there it goes through another pipe to the treatment plant. We have in the past had issues with a certain kind of algae growth in the Ione Reservoir, and it can cause certain tastes and odor issues that, believe it or not, are not health risks, but there can be very unpleasant. It's an algae called jasmine, So in recent years, we've worked really hard to try to change the way we manage the reservoir level when the weather's changing and the heat changes, so that we don't get that algae development. But sometimes things happen. Once it goes into the treatment plant, we adjust the chemicals that we're using before it goes through the filters that make the suspended matter coagulate so that we can filter it out more easily, and then we disinfect it. And when it's leaving the plant, the water is tested to make sure that we're meeting every state and federal drinking water standard. And there are drinking water standards for taste and odor as well. So, I mean, the best I can tell you is we do everything that we can and everything we're legally required to do to make sure we avoid those kinds of taste and odor issues. There will be fluctuations sometimes during the year, a little bit. It's also possible that taste and odor issues can come up because of plumbing in the house, although you've said you've got copper plumbing and you've dealt with that. Other people aren't as fortunate with that, and sometimes there's issues that come up in their household. But that's the best answer I can give you right now. I would suggest that if you're having a specific taste and odor issue, you can report that by calling customer service or on our website contacting customer service, and we will get somebody out there to see what the problem is so we can address it.
My neighbor complained one time too, and people came out and they looked and they ran water and said, well, there's nothing we can do about it. We don't live in a new area. We live in one of the older areas, not downtown, but up on the hills near Oak Ridge. And those homes were built in mid-60s. Mm-hmm. Okay, now we've been there for 31 years, and it hasn't gotten any better.
Yeah. We will, I'll check and see. We have customer service here. We can see whether there's been complaints.
I know we keep seeing the flyers that send out, because we had the water tested and everything's fine, good, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, God, if they ever come out here and tested this water, they would reject it. I wouldn't even feed it to my dog. And today, it was better, but it was chlorine. It was pretty well chlorine. Mm-hmm. But yesterday, it wasn't. Almost all week, almost all month, so far it hasn't been all that good. But
yeah, one of the challenges we have, and I can't make an excuse for what you're saying. We should try to address that. But I will say one of the challenges that we have is that our systems are often so spread out compared to the number of customers we have, and we have systems that reach out a long way. So we have water that stays in our system for a long time, and we have to go out and flush that. We have to go out and open fire hydrants and flush water out, which people hate to see when we're telling them to make every drop count. But it's a regulatory requirement because of the age of the water in the pipes in the system. And when you're a long way out, that can be the water can be in there for quite a while, and it can affect the taste and odor. But I encourage you to report it anytime it's happening, and we'll check and see if that neighborhood has had other complaints. Jessie over here is our customer service supervisor, and she is the implementer of all of this. She'll take your complaints.
Larry, is there?
Considering putting in a whole house filtration system, but I just can't afford that.
When there are taste odor issues that a customer is experiencing, is there a way? I mean, can we have them meet them at the plant to see if the water as it's leaving the plant is having the same issues, or if there's something that might be getting picked up in the distribution system?
We do sampling at a number of places in our system, so we should be able to track if there's an issue happening.
So I'm going to get back to wastewater because I did not close that public hearing. Are there any other protests? So now I will close the wastewater public hearing and open the water rate public hearing. So please feel free to come up to the mic and address the board.
Do you want to do the tabulation right now of wastewater so people know?
Okay. Paul.
Paul.
Madam President, we have received 3 valid protests on wastewater. The 50% plus 1 threshold for an effective protest is 418. Therefore, there is no successful protest.
Okay, thank you for that. So would anyone like to address the board on the water rate increase? Come on up to the microphone, please. I just want to make sure that it gets recorded, your comments get recorded.
Hi, I'm Talbot Hardy. We live in Sutter Creek, California. I just have a couple of questions.
What's your name?
Talbot Hardy. The first question is just really wanting to, after looking at the rate structure that you had there, wanting to understand the methodology for the different charges in the different locations, given where these projects and where the funding is going and who that funding is serving for these projects. So I notice in our city, for example, there's, you know, an order of magnitude higher cost than, say, Comanche or something like that. And I was wondering if you could explain that.
That's a great question. Do you want to have Sanjay take that, or do you want to take that?
Sanjay, I'm going to take a quick run at this, and then you tell me if I'm wrong. There's 3 components of the charge. So you've got a commodity charge, a monthly service charge, and a debt service charge. The monthly service charge and the commodity charges are common across the entire water enterprise. The debt service charges are different in different service areas because there were old debts that were issued that were for specific parts of the agency. The agency consolidated its finances in 2016 and started having just water enterprise-wide rates. But the board made the decision when they did that in 2016 to keep the older debt service that was specific to that area and a separate debt service charge. So they're different because there were different debts. So for where you are in the Amador water system, the debts include, you know, debt that was to build the Amador transmission pipeline and debt that was for older plant improvements and those sorts of things. Upcountry and the COP system, the debt is related to the construction of the gravity supply line. So there were different debts for different projects that benefited different areas, and those have been maintained as a separate charge, even while the rest of the charges have been consolidated. And then that's why what happens is when you have growth in those areas, more people are paying that same amount, and the debt charge goes down a little bit.
So we're paying the premium on the debt that was done for the projects. Oh, sure.
Thank you.
So, can you hear me? You can't hear me?
Now I can hear you.
Okay, you can hear me now. So what you're saying is in the past, we're paying a premium for the past projects that were done in our specific areas, and then the new projects that you're doing, we're bearing the burden of projects that are done in different areas, and you've changed the methodology for how you're setting those charges or how you're dispersing the cost of these projects.
Well, I wouldn't say you're paying a premium. When you debt finance a project, it means
Well,
that the people who are using the project over time are paying the cost of.
That's not what's happening now.
Well, you're benefiting from those projects that were financed in the past.
But we're
And
not
then-
spreading the cost of those across every customer. You're just giving the cost of those to our specific area. But in
You're
these new projects, you're spreading it across everyone.
That's correct. And the new costs, we can't put into a debt service charge while we're doing this study because we don't know what the debt service is going to be until we issue the debt and get contracts and move forward. The board had extensive discussions about this because I think that the goal previously was to keep the old debts in the historic debt service charge, and that those charges would eventually go down to zero. New debt, because when we issue new debt, we pledge the revenue of the entire water enterprise as the security against that debt. And we have enough projects to where every part of the agency has got projects that are going to be either debt financed or pay-go, and it's just a question of which one is getting the debt financing and which one is doing pay-go. In our discussions during this rate study, the board was very aware of the value of having a debt service charge in each service area that really shows that they're paying for the projects that benefit that service area. And that may be something that's revisited in the next rate study once we know what those charges actually are. But we couldn't legally do that for the new projects now.
That makes sense. My second question is about just kind of looking at our water bill. It's getting to a point where the amount of water that we use is immaterial to our bill, and there's just no escape from, there's no management of our water cost at this point. It's just like a tax, whether you use water or not. Can you talk about that?
Absolutely. That's another issue that we really grappled with. More than 90% of our costs are fixed. Keeping the lights on, keeping the plants running, keeping people employed, et cetera. Those are all fixed costs. But if we were to apply all of those fixed costs to the bill, it would be much higher. Okay? And particularly for those that don't use very much water at all, and it becomes unaffordable, really.
Yeah. So
we, at the 2021 rate increase, we went to a 60-40 split. So 60% of the revenue that we raised is fixed from fixed costs, and the other is from the variable consumable rate. And that, that brings up a lot of questions about, conservation. The more you conserve, it really doesn't have that much of an impact. But we really have to walk this line of between conservation and affordability, but also being able to generate enough revenue to keep the plants
and make it viable.
Going.
Yeah.
So a 60-40 split is becoming more the norm in the industry.
And is that, so the new additional costs, so the increases, are they split down that 60-40 line, or is the methodology different?
That's a Sanjay question. Did you hear that question, Mr. Carr?
Yeah, the question was, what is our actual fixed cost?
No.
Well, for the projects, are the projects going to be broken down to fixed and the consumable
Yes,
rate?
all the CIP projects, all those costs, those are fixed. So the way to think about water service is, there's the water, the molecule, right, which is very valuable. But then there's the pipelines. There's all the pump stations. There's the treatment plants. All that's fixed. So in a lot of ways, to think of it as if you had a very expensive car, and you lived in the old days when gas was cheap. So this is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a very, and maybe it's not expensive, it's not the right word for a car, but a very, very complex car, a vehicle that can do a lot of things. So we have a water system that's complicated, that has a lot of maintenance that needs to occur. Something goes down, we have to fix it. So if you have a lot of fixed costs, I suspect if we look at your business of running your system, and Nancy can correct me here, I think we're almost like 90% fixed or 95% fixed, because your variable cost is just the electricity and chemical costs of the water.
So I think you
Tell,
just
but
said 60-40, right?
Yeah, I think you were asking a slightly different question. I think as an agency, we have roughly 90% fixed costs, but I think what you were asking is, other than the debt service, is everything split 60-40?
Yeah. So
in terms of what the rates?
If we look at the rate increases, I'm wondering how much of the rate increase is something that we could manage through conservation or something like that. If it gets unaffordable, right, it's like a runaway train, or if we're just can't get out of any of that regardless of how much or little water we use? That's what I'm wondering.
Let me try for this one. First, we were just talking about fixed and variable costs, but what we're really addressing is fixed and variable revenue. So when Sanjay looks at how to construct the rates, he's gotten the policy decision from the board that we want to have 60% of our revenue be fixed. And it really doesn't matter what the exact cost, where that comes from. And we want it to be high enough that the ratings agencies know that we're going to be stable in a drought, for example, but not so high that people that use very little water get really slammed. And we actually modeled several scenarios so that the board could see that at different ratios. But the other part of your question, though, is, could we conserve enough that we wouldn't need these rate increases? And the answer right now is really no, because we know that about 4% of the 4 of the 7% is really just inflation of our other costs. And the other 3% is what we're applying to be able to have the debt coverage for the debt that we're incurring for these projects. And these projects are needed now based on existing demands. And it's kind of there's a tipping point issue here. If we could reduce our water use permanently, including in the summer, by say 20%, and know that was going to happen, then we could defer these treatment plant projects for a little while until a few more houses are built. But we've let things go for long enough now to where we really are at sort of a quantum moment. We have to make improvements. But I appreciate your point, because as efficiently as we can use water in the future, it will defer further developments. All those other millions of dollars of projects that were identified, those are all still needed because of current deficiencies, but they're more and more driven by future growth. And if we can keep demand down, we can maybe defer some of those costs in the future.
I think that's important to think about going forward, because you're dramatically reducing the incentive to conserve water. There's no benefit to conserving water right now when you've got a fixed bill coming at you whether you use the water or not. Yeah.
And we really grappled with that breakdown, especially because we do have a high percentage of senior citizens that are mostly single people, and when their water bill is the same as a family of 4 or 5, it's it's hard to explain. But again, we're trying to make that balance between affordability and conservation and keeping the lights on. So,
Thank you.
thank you for your questions.
I normally don't speak at these things, but my last name is Drought. Okay, so you got that?
So it's wholly appropriate.
Yes, and so I have conserved all my life, especially water. And to see when I moved down to Sutter Creek in 2013, my water bill was $25.72. How can I pay in 2030 $171, whatever? I bucket, I hold my showers, I hold it up. It scares me every time you said, we just let things go. Things were from 1960. The clear water is from 80 years ago. Why wasn't this done years ago? Why? Why? We are impacted. I live in an association. Most of us don't have grass. We have rocks because we can't afford to water lawns. Since I've been there, 5 people have taken out their lawns. I'm a single person. I don't even use that much water. I'm very, very careful. And to have this kind of an increase from $25 to $171 is outrageous.
That includes your sewer?
No. Separate. Yeah.
And you're one person?
I'm one person in one home with rocks and cement.
I think you got a leak.
No, I do not.
Because of the higher debt service structure.
I wrote down exactly what I was paying from year to year. And it's just outrageous how the bill has gone up. And I think it was from 2021 when I heard on the national radio that Amador County was going to have the most expensive water in the next 3 years. I can't even believe in the costs and why you haven't done anything in the past, and we are now suffering it. So think about that when you vote. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I do want to say that I understand I'm a household of 2, and my water bills this summer were $350 a month. So I get it. It's concerning. It's still, while as unaffordable as that sounds, it's still 1 to 3% of the income of the average medium household income in the county, which is pretty, 1 to 3%. The medium income, household income in Amador County. So it's still considered somewhat affordable, but you know, we do have, this board has had expressed concerns over affordability all the way through. We've been trying to push, the Amador Water Agency, as small as we are, have been trying to push our national or our state organization of water agencies to get some affordability legislation in place for ratepayer assistance, and we've pretty much fallen on deaf ears at this point. But we're going to continue to work on that and getting a rate assistance program set in place that's not funded from other ratepayers, but funded hopefully out of the general fund from the state. But that's the best we can do at this point to do that, because we do have to address this failing infrastructure. And I'm in the same camp with you in terms of, you know, yes, these improvements should have been done, and there wasn't a desire to do big projects, and these projects have been kicked down the road. I'll also say that the amount of federal spending on small water structure, you know, infrastructure projects has gone from, you know, 20, 30 years ago, over 50% of our funds came from grants from the federal or state government. And I think I was at a water conference last week, and I think they said it was down to 7%. So we don't get the funding that we used to get either, and that's why some of these projects haven't gotten done. And that's the other reason why we're having to face doing, you know, borrowing. I mean, nobody wants to borrow the amount of money that we're going to need to borrow, but if we can't put that all on the backs of the ratepayers. So it's a bad situation all the way around.
Good evening. My name's Sean Krilitich from Jackson. And first of all, I'd like to take issue with President Peters' statement that this is 1 to 3% of the median income. That means that the median income in this county is $17,000 a month. So I think you need to check your numbers on that, because this county certainly does not have the greatest median income in the country, and we certainly do have the highest water rates in the country. So you directors are presiding over that. This evening, though, I would like to talk about one relatively small thing that has been factored in to this rate study. And even before the last 5-year rate increase has taken full effect, another 5-year rate increase is again on the table. Included in this AWA financials for this increase is a massive concession to PG&E and a yet-to-be-signed consolidation and amendment of the Amador Water System contract. This concession has to do with payments that stem from AWA's construction of the roughly $40 million Amador transmission line in 2007. To date, PG&E has paid AWA fewer than $3.5 million over the last 18 years. So that's well under 10% of what this project is costing myself and the other people in this room and this whole community. which amounts to less than half of the money that PG&E has made on electrical generation with the water conserved by the Amador transmission line. Meanwhile, AWA pays over $1 million per year on the Amador transmission line mortgage and will continue to do so for more than a decade into the future. For the last 2 years, PG&E has not made their contractual obligated payments to AWA, a situation which AWA staff and directors have allowed to happen without legal complaint. Now PG&E seeks to permanently reduce their payments by half, which means that AWA will only be receiving 1/4 of the funds warranted for the water conserved by the Amador transmission line. AWA directors have allowed staff to take their paid time to draft a new agreement with PG&E that reflects this sharp reduction in payments without explanation as to why these payments should be reduced. Now, on the eve of yet another AWA rate increase, I ask the directors to start looking out for their rate-paying customers and the Amador County community by demanding full value for our most precious resource, water. It is not AWA ratepayers' responsibility to act as a charity for PG&E or any other public or private entity for that matter. I'd also like to insert here that I don't think it's applicable to call a public agency industry or an enterprise. And that's a relatively new word here that it really rubs the wrong way, especially with the rates that we're paying. Would the rate increase on the table this evening really be necessary if the AWA directors and staff were looking at the financial interests of their customers? After all, it is us who pay your ever-increasing bills. Would AWA's expenditures really have to increase so much if directors and staff care more about their customers' finances than avoiding conflict with entities like PG&E? This is just one case, remember. It is time to stop pandering to corporate greed and start valuing our neighbors and our water. Please, vote no on the proposed rate increase tonight and no on the proposed consolidated agreement with PG&E on Thursday. And I would ask everyone in this room to be there on Thursday and hold these directors' feet to the fire to not sign this new agreement with PG&E. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Do I have any other questions or comments from members of the public?
Rex Onetto, a ratepayer. Basically, the problem I see is it's called money. Where does it come from? Where does it go? And the rates always are going up, up, up. And like if what this gentleman says is even close to true, that's probably our biggest problem. We're tap dancing all around this issue. You got to look and see where is the money going. And I'd like to know how much the water agency in the last year has spent on consultants. I know what an attorney costs. And I'm looking up and I see 3 people up there. I'd hate to guess what that tonight alone cost. One thing I see here, why are the rates, if I'm reading this right, for treated water why is the rate for untreated water more than treated water? If you look at the monthly water service charges, let's do it simple. A 5/8 meter, fiscal year 2026, is $77.10. And if you go to the other side, treated water, 5/8 meter, same meter, $51. I think untreated water is cheaper to make than treated water.
Because the commodity charge for untreated water is half the commodity charge for treated water.
Well, untreated water should be cheaper. Am I missing something? It's like premium gas and regular. We always know which costs more.
And that's why the commodity volumetric charge for untreated water is about half of the commodity charge for treated water.
What is the commodity rate? What's that based on?
That's derived from the 40% of revenue coming from a variable
Well,
charge. That's how
yeah.
you get that.
I see these fancy numbers and I hear them, just like when you said about the medium income. If you throw one billionaire into Amador County, you know what that does to the medium income of this county? So using that phrase, medium, can be a sleight of hand worse than gambling in Vegas. And just like this commodity, yeah, untreated water is $2.77. Wow. You go over to treated water, it's $5.25. We're talking $2. So it means nothing. The commodity rate is very minimal.
Double, roughly.
Wow, $1 versus $2.
We have a lot more customers who only use a few units of treated water than untreated water. Usually our untreated untreated customers are using a lot more water because it's for agriculture.
Well,
not
we
for
still got the
household
set
consumption.
rate of whether you use water or not. That's there too. Like one of the previous people spoke about, there's a set cost there. Now, has the water agency looked at, I think California has this thing called 2030, 2035, where they want to push people into the urban areas out of the rurals. And the case I'm going to make, let's take up country. The insurance for fires went outrageous. So what that does, above Jackson, 2,000-foot elevation up, people can't afford the insurance. So everybody's, oh, sell the house. Well, most people can't afford to buy the house. So I see a slow implosion of our upcountry and outlying areas, because you're going to need a cash customer to buy that house, because most people can't afford the house payment, let alone the insurance. And you're going to see a slow implosion up there as it goes in, and you're going to have customers dropping off. And my question is, and I can see this coming, as customers drop off and the water agency has an excess of water, what are you going to do with it? That's a hypothetical, but it's coming. Could it be plausible we're going to sell it to the Bay Area? And if we do that, you know what that does to Amador County? In growth, it's done. It'll never happen. And what the water agency need to do is look at where your money's going. I would like to know, don't need it tonight, how much do we spend in consultants last year? Engineers.
We can certainly get those numbers to you. I will note that we have one person in our engineering department because we've lost two.
I see 3 up on that board.
Those are
we're paying for them?
So what I'm saying is that our staff is very lean. We no longer have an engineering manager. Our operations manager is covering engineering. So we have to have more consultants. We do not have a finance manager, so we have to use consultants to help us with that as well. So some of these reasons why we have consultants is because we are so short-staffed and having trouble getting people to fill those positions at the rate that we're able to pay them.
But it's actually also more economical.
Yes.
Well,
But we will certainly
set.
get you those numbers.
And then in some of the stuff, this goes back several years ago. I'm coming up Ridge Road down by the County Human Health Services, and I see a big crane over there at the pump station between that and Emerson's, and they're picking I believe it's a generator out of there. And the reason they're picking with the crane, whatever engineer designed that station put the generator at the back of the hurricane fence away from the gate, so you got to tear out infrastructure, get it out for an expensive crane. And then I see the crane up at the Martell. So I called and I was pretty hot about it. And I probably should have came in then and asked about it. I says, why are we using this crane that's probably a $400 hour machine? I believe I was lied to because I hired tow trucks to haul trucks. Basically, I was told that crane came from Placerville here for $600. So I'm like, I can't get a truck hauled in a tow truck, which doesn't cost what that crane did, for under $600 at that time, maybe closer to $800. And they said, well, the reason we did that, and you can always tap dance around and make an excuse. Oh, the reason we did it at Martell, there's not much room, which there isn't, since we had to use the crane to set it because there's no room. But whatever engineer designed that pumping station, put that generator in the back, so we got to use a $300-400 an hour crane to get it out of there. And I don't believe I was told the truth on what the rate for that crane was. I was told that crane came from Placerville and did this for $600. And when I look at the way that was designed, it was whatever engineer designed it should have been fired.
Well, keep in mind.
We're at 7 minutes. But
Okay,
Well-
I will say that keep in mind that some of these are very old
No, that's
infrastructure that was designed and put in as part of the community service district with the county and that we acquired. So, yeah, I mean,
Susan.
and before there was.
Doesn't matter how old it is, design it right.
Okay. Comment noted.
You know, because, and I hear all these tap dancing words, oh, we're going to do this, infrastructure. I think you need to look at where the money goes. And I
agree with you.
can look at things and go, geez, this don't look right.
Yeah.
There's an agency around here, we're really close to it, that there was money issues, and then the big story hit the paper. Does this building ring a bell?
Okay, thank you for your comments. Anyone else want to address the board?
Would you guys mind commenting on your perspectives on that PG&E commentary that I heard there?
That is an issue that we are going to be addressing at Thursday's meeting. It is an agreement between the water agency and PG&E that's agendized for Thursday. It's not on tonight's agenda, so it would be a Brown Act violation for us to get into the merits of that tonight.
Okay.
I'd be happy to talk with you after the meeting.
Yeah. It's our regular board meeting Thursday morning at 9 a.m. at the Amador Water Agency Board Chambers.
And if you can't make it there in person, those are all
Yeah, that's all.
recorded and available.
And that will be a virtual, or will be a hybrid meeting also, so you can Zoom into it, so. Any other questions or comments?
Hi, I'm Bob Bowers. I'm from Sutter Creek. Just a couple things. Unfortunately, I have about a mile line, it's a private line, and because of the distance and height, I have to, I give a 2-inch meter. And the water that I receive, because it comes up Spanish Street, is an old line still, so I can't have a lot of pressure. So that's the reason why, anyway, to make the long story short, it's around a 2-inch line. Right now, before I turn a drop of water on, my bill is $504.86. There's no consumption on that. I understand that by raising the service fee, you guys are, it's a lot easier to manage because you don't have to worry about if this person saves water, if this one doesn't save water. But on the other hand, if you raise both, raise one a little bit and then raise your consumption rate, it's a lot fairer for everybody. Because right now, a person is running a 5/8 inch meter. I pay 6 times as much per unit for the same water because of the amount of debt fee and service fee. Even if I don't use as much as that person, I'm paying 6 times as much. So anyway, I know that this is all said and done now, but in the future, you might want to raise the consumption rate. It does several things. Number one, it's harder to manage, but if you look over, I know during the drought, we had a consumption rate we wanted to drop by 15%, and it occurred. I think it's a fair way to do it. You're still going to have to raise your service fee, I'm sure, because that way that's a guaranteed. But to make it fair for for everybody, consumption rate, if you use more, you pay more. And the other thing is how about the city of Jackson? Are their water rates gonna get raised?
Yes, they are. We provide water to them wholesale. They are not a retail customer, and the wholesale rates are going up. I believe Jackson's is 14.
It was in the slides that are not being presented because the wholesale
Right, but it wasn't presented.
presented.
I'm not gonna,
But what were you asking at 14?
what's the percent that Jackson's revenue increase is?
Sanjay or Nancy, do you remember? I don't remember now what that number is. The percent increase that Jackson is seeing in their first bill, I think it's 11%.
Give me 1 second, we can look that up.
And that's the city of Jackson, that's not necessarily to the Jackson consumers, because they
Right.
have to do their
So
own
the
rates.
city of Jackson pays a wholesale rate.
I
Yeah.
understand that.
So for purposes of what we're talking about tonight, you should all know that we do go through, in the rate study, we do a careful calculation as far as the cost of service, how much of our cost of service is attributable to the wholesale customers. We have 5 of them. And then we do establish monthly service charges and volumetric charges and debt service charges for the wholesale customers. We're not addressing those tonight because they're not subject to Proposition 218. We have obligations in our agreements with them about meeting with them and talking about the rates, but it's not really part of this public hearing. But their rates are going up similarly to the retail rates because it's the same financial need that we have, and they have certain parts of our costs that are attributable to wholesale services.
Larry, I have the answer to your question.
Go ahead, Nancy.
So for the city of, when we did the treated wholesale customer impacts for that first year only, based on average monthly use, they would see about an 8.9% increase.
I didn't
to
know.
their
8.9. 8.9.
Thank you, Nancy.
What rate are they paying?
The proposed wholesale rates are in the rate study that's available up here. And the rate study is on our website.
I think that's about all. The only thing on the downside or the last thing is that in 2030, 31, without turning a drop of water on, I'll be paying $723.49
Ouch.
a month.
Yeah.
And that's because you've got a mile that you
I've
pull
got
it.
a private line.
It's because of the hydraulics of his system, we need a larger meter. So it's not really a rate question, I don't think. It's more appropriately addressed as a way we categorize the size of the meter. So similarly, where we have meters that are 1-inch meters, but it's only because of fire service, we have a policy that says that we only charge the 5/8 inch rate. We've talked about it for a period of years about whether we ought to be reevaluating the way that we establish meter size requirements. The way that we do it in the rate study now and the way it's normal in the industry is that the meter size is really the fixed charge, the monthly service charge for the meter size is based on the potential demand that puts on our system, the peaking that causes for our system, because that's what, you figure if you have a larger meter, you could use that water, so you have to pay a higher charge for that. But if the meter is that size, not because of potential usage, but because of a hydraulic issue, maybe there's something we can do to think about that. So I'd be happy to talk to you about it later.
Propose a smaller meter.
Well, the downside of that is that if I did do that, then I would have to pay the installation fee, which right now is what, for a 5/8 inch meter is what, $20 grand down here?
That would be for new service.
It's not a
You
new
already have
connection.
service.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a new connection. It'd just be a difference in how we calculate the rate.
What
I
I would
wanna-
say is that's your situation, I don't think is relevant to the 218 hearing, but I think that's something that you should come in and essentially using a 5/8 inch
Yeah.
amount of water. It's just because of the hydrology, there's the bigger meter, and I think we need to figure that out.
Okay.
Let's talk.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments?
Yeah, Marcus Boggs, raw water customer. And just to kind of summarize things, I have 40 years experience working for the largest utilities in the United States. American Electric Power, Duke Power, Xcel Energy, PG&E. I've been involved in a lot of rate cases with the Public Utilities Commission. Anytime a utility wants to raise rates, they usually go to another governmental agency. I don't know how the water thing works, but it seems like you guys just, projects, and Larry, what you articulated, these sound like all necessary projects. You guys are living on the edge right here. I've been discussing projects with none of you people on this board for 25 years with AWA. The first thing was the Amador transmission line. We fought that. The canal was working fine. They said it's because of the maintenance, but that was a, $35, $40 million project that, as these people are saying, we're paying debt service on this stuff. What's the capacity of that? 25% capacity? Are you running at full bore? I don't think so. Okay, so that's $40 million in avoided costs. Gravity supply line, you had the pumping station coming up out of Tiger Creek up to Buckhorn for the COP system. Gravity supply line, we fought that too. That was about another $12 or $13 million project. Now I hear PG&E's taking out some of the flumes that are used on that. You guys do you have a backup for that system? Is the Buckhorn pumping station still functional? Some of these decisions that have been made over the last 25 years at AWA is costing all of us ratepayers these huge rates. And as this gentleman's saying, I live up country. I can't afford insurance. We live right up above the Macomb River there, off Lake Tebow. And so it's just, people are not going to be able to they can't afford the rates anymore, especially the ag people, I have a winery, I have vineyards, I have olive orchards, and it's going to get to the point where I'm just going to give it all up, So those are just my comments. I'm not blaming you guys. I'm just saying you need to be very prudent on your future capital projects because these things are burdened on the ratepayers of the county. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I appreciate that. Any other questions or comments?
Yes. I'm Peter Garibaldi. I have meters at Comanche. One of my comments is on why are you guys raising the rate on a standby meter? It doesn't do anything. All we have is just the option if we ever want to put a meter in. Years ago, I was paying like $20 a month. Now I'm up to like $60 a month. So before I turn the faucet on, I'm paying $600 for the 2 meters that have water available to them. And with your rate increase, if I read it right, I'm going to be up to like $900, $1,200 at the end of 5 years. Well, it's making it tight right now to pay the $600. My last bill was $630. And they've all been in the upper 5s, low 6s. Maybe another way to look at this thing, people with wastewater, look at the amount of water that they goes through their meter and find a formula that based on the amount of water that goes through your meter, you pay X number of dollars for wastewater. Instead of somebody that uses 5 or 6 units of water versus somebody using 30 units of water. Have you guys looked into your own structure? Because I've noticed when I'm down at Comanche, I'll see one of your pickups going this way. Next thing I know, there's another one going back up the road. And then it's going back, another one's going down the road. It's not the same truck, it's different trucks.
Well, I think I can answer that, because we do have different departments. So we have wastewater, and then we have water. And we have the collections and wastewater collections and treatment operators that are doing different things than what water distribution and treatment are doing. And then we have the construction crews that are in different trucks doing different projects. So, and electrical. So we have multiple crews moving around at the same time that may not be working on the same project at the same time.
Well, is there any way you can take some of those people that are working on a project and combine them with another project? Just take your meter reader and maybe you can, one of your other guys can do the meter reading.
Yeah, we are so slim staffed right now that would be really difficult to manage. But I do want to address, Larry, can you address the standby fee? Because I have an answer for that, but I think you'll probably be more articulate than I will.
I don't think I can answer it, but I want to talk to you about it separately. There's nothing about standby fees in the rate study or in the rates that are being proposed
They have
tonight.
been going up steadily.
So that's a different issue from what we're talking about tonight, but I'm not aware of that, and I want to talk to you about it, and we've got other staff here, so I do want to learn about that, but it should be separate from this hearing. So.
I didn't think we had standby fees.
Well, it sounds like it might be just a connection that's just not being used. So it's just no commodity charge, it's just the fixed charge, but.
That may be what it is, and that's different, so we'll talk about it.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right. Do we have any other protests that people would like to submit? Yeah, we'll just take a few-minute break here to let people fill out the protests and let staff count what we have. It's 8:17, and I'm going to call the meeting back into session here. And we are going to go to, well, I need to get the vote count on the protests.
So I've tabulated the valid protests and found that we have 22 valid protests. 3,736 protests would have to be filed to constitute a protest to stop the rates from moving forward, so there is no successful protest.
Okay. All right, so that puts us to where we have to start making some decisions. In our packet tonight are two resolutions, and I'll start with the first one that's, get to it, resolution number 2025-12, Board of Directors, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Amador Water Agency adopting adjustments to wastewater rates and charges for fiscal years 27 through 31. I'll take questions and comments from board members, and we'll entertain a motion. Yeah, Director Farrington, any questions, comments?
I'd just like to emphasize that we've got 23 million in the capital 5-year capital program that we cannot fund. So we're just barely getting along. So
Any other comments on the wastewater rates?
Part of why we made the decision in the rate setting process not to essentially do any capital improvements in wastewater is that, unlike as when we get to treated water, there were not any capital projects that looked like they were going to cause imminent system failures. So just trying to do maintenance and keep on going, because there's not the risk of catastrophic failure or significant risk of catastrophic failure.
Okay, if there is no other questions or comments, I will entertain a motion at this time.
I'll move to approve 2025-12. Move to approve resolution 2025-12 on the adopting the adjustments to wastewater rates and charges for 27 through 31.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion by Director Farrington and a second by Director Molinelli. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. That brings us to resolution number 2025-13. Adopting adjustments to the water rates and charges for fiscal years 27 through 31. And I'll start with Director Farrington. Questions or comments?
Not really. I don't think I heard anything. There were some comments about high water bills, which I'm puzzled about, but no comments.
The comment I'll have, being the newest member of the board, fundamentally, I hope what we're doing is enough. It is a deeply unpleasant situation to be at the end of the road where the can has been kicked, down and down and down and down. But affordability is tremendously important. The only thing essentially above that, to my perspective, is actual service delivery. The water being affordable is critical. The water actually being there to come out of your faucet is even more, immensely important. And coming in and looking at the state of the system and some of these 6 projects, the Clearwell replacement, it was shocking to me that we were, that is. I don't remember, it was 2 or 3 almost failures that we've had on the Clearwell cover, and that if that Clearwell cover goes out, fails, then everybody served by Tanner is looking at, on the good scenario is that you're looking at boil water orders for weeks, maybe months. The bad scenario is the cover fouls the system and there is no water being delivered. That's horrifying. So the 6 projects that we've boiled down to are not luxury items. They are things that are just hoping that we can get them done. Well, I'm hoping that we can get them done before there's a failure. I come from a world where, you start getting nervous where your, tertiary redundant backup is down, and I look at the system map and there's single points of failure, and it's a critical resource like drinking water, and having to raise the rates is terrible, but we have enormous vulnerabilities in the infrastructure that we just have to address. And should they have been addressed years ago? You know what? We're not years ago. We're where we are, and we've got to deal with the situation we're in. But we've got to replace that clear well. That just costs. Down at Ione, when I'm looking at pictures of a chlorine delivery truck that's got a backhoe pulling it up and another truck pushing it from behind and one wheel off the edge, we got to fix that road. There's no other choice than that. We're risking chemical spills. We've got people who are delivering chemicals who say, I'm not driving up that. Get somebody else to deliver. No one wants to have to charge higher rates. No one wants to have to pay them. But we have to be able to deliver you water. We have to be able to deliver you water reliably. And anyway, that's all. I mean, we're not raising the rates because we want to. We're raising them because we have to. And I hope what we're doing is enough. I argued that it wasn't. I hope I'm wrong.
So well put. Thank you for those comments. Appreciate those. No other? Okay. So, 5 years ago we did a much larger increase, and I was hopeful at that time that we wouldn't have to do another increase, that it would be closer to 4 or 5% instead of a 7%. And as Director Parker said, really we should be looking at something higher than 7% based on the critical needs of our infrastructure, but we're trying to keep the affordability in mind as much as possible. And we're diligently continue to look for grant funds. Those are becoming fewer and farther between. We are looking at water transfers, which is not selling our water supply, but selling conserved water for a certain amount of time until we need it. But that is another way that we can generate some revenue, and more to come on that. We're getting closer to an agreement. Hopefully that happens within the next few months. So in the meantime, I think this is our only path. And with that, I will entertain a motion. Adopt resolution number 2025.
I'll put forward a motion that we adopt resolution number 2025-13.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Director Deaver, seconded? Okay. So I have a motion by Director Parker to adopt resolution number 2025-13, adopting the adjustments to water rates and charges for fiscal years 27 through 31. And a second by Director Deaver. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. I want to thank the public again for coming out tonight. I know it's a nasty, foggy night. We do meet twice a month on Thursday mornings. I know it's hard for people that work to come to those meetings, but please follow our agendas. We are all available to ask questions, make comments, and as you heard, there's some people with some issues here, come talk to us, because we don't know unless we hear from you. And, keep the communication going with us. And again, I appreciate everyone's attendance tonight. Pardon me? Okay. I'm going to let you guys have that conversation offline. I also want to thank our consultants that are still online for attending and being there for support, and our staff that's here tonight. We've got a fabulous group sitting at this table right here, a lot of brain power right there. So with that, it is 8:28, and I am adjourning this meeting.